Hey guys, what's up? I am back with another video today, and today I am doing my Vikings mock draft. So as always, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Please help me get to 150 subscribers before the end of February. Comment your thoughts and opinions down below as always. If you want me to do your team's mock draft, or you have any other video ideas, I will happily do them. So just make sure you put them in the comment section down below. Also, put all your comments, whether you agree with my opinions or disagree with them. I just enjoy the interaction. So make sure you shout out me to any of your friends or family. Like this video if you enjoy it. It really helps the channel. And let's get started with today's video. So the Vikings are a very interesting team. They were the third place team in a division that probably is going to get a lot better this coming season. This is a team that has a older roster compared to some of the other teams and is obviously getting a lot older. So this is a team that kind of needs to get younger. It needs a little bit more depth. It always needs a lot more defensive help, especially at the defensive end and linebacking position. So let's see what we can do with that. So with the 14th overall pick, and I do want to point out I was using Pro Football Network, so I wasn't lying with this. I was able to draft Zach Wilson with the 14th overall pick. And I'm like, okay, I know the Vikings still have Kirk Cousins, and I know maybe there's a trade there for Jimmy G or other quarterbacks that the Vikings will trade. But I think if you can get a quarterback like Zach Wilson and be able to put him on a team that is pretty good with a great wide receiving core with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, I think that it would really, really help his growth, and he would be able to sit behind Kirk Cousins for at least 1 year and then maybe a couple more years, and it could really, really help his growth. So I just couldn't believe that Zach Wilson was there. So I'm like, I'm definitely taking him. He's a great quarterback. He could be as high as the number 3 or number 2 overall pick. So I definitely think that he is a great choice at number 14. The Vikings do not have a second round pick, so I had to wait all the way till the number 78 overall pick, and that was Jackson Carman, offensive tackle, but technically he's going to be coming out as an offensive guard most likely in the NFL. He's out of Clemson University. He is definitely going to need some development. But I think with Jackson Carman, he seems to be working out really well this offseason. He seems to be doing well. He played pretty well at the Senior Bowl, and he should be able to really come into an offensive system and definitely be able to play a guard and maybe a swing tackle and be a sixth guy on a struggling Vikings offensive line, offensive line that could always use depth. So I thought he would be a great addition there. Other players that were available at Jackson Carman's position was Tylan Wallace, the wide receiver for Oklahoma State, Amari Rogers, wide receiver for Clemson, Ardarius Washington, safety for TCU, and Brandon Christensen, offensive tackle out of BYU. So for the wide receivers, I don't think the Vikings need a wide receiver, maybe a depth piece, but not at the very beginning of the draft. Then you have a safety. I don't think that they need a safety, especially with their second pick. They do not need an offensive tackle. I think that they could use. I think that Jackson Carman was just a better player and a better fit for the Viking system. And then with the 90th overall pick, I picked Liam Eichenberg, offensive tackle out of Notre Dame University. I thought this was a great pick here. I thought that Liam Eichenberg would be able to, again, be another swing tackle, be able to be either a depth piece, and he could be as high as a first-round pick. So at number 90 overall, I am definitely taking him because he has a really, really high floor, so he can start immediately and be able to go in there and be able to play with the best of them. And with being on one of the better universities, he is able to develop his talent really quickly, I think, in the NFL. And I think that's been seen with all of the other Notre Dame offensive linemen, whether it's Ronnie Stanley, Zach Martin, Quentin Nelson, or Mike McGlinchey. All of them have come into the NFL and really have grown into all their own. And all of them are all pros. And you can even look at Nick Martin or Alex Bars or Sam Mustipher as other players in the NFL that have done well for themselves. They're not all pro players, but they are really, really solid players. Other players that were available at that spot was Tyler Shelvin, defensive tackle out of LSU, Tommy Tremble, tight end out of Notre Dame, Marlon Tupolon, defensive tackle out of USC, And I mean Southern California by that, not because I live in South Carolina. A lot of people think when I say USC, I mean South Carolina University, but I mean Southern Cal University. So I think that that's a little bit of context. I just want to say that. And then Kyle Trask, quarterback out of Florida University. I just thought you don't need a defensive tackle particularly, so Tyler Shelvin is not an answer. Tommy Tremble would be a great pickup here, but I thought that Liam Eichenberg was such a better value here, and I think Tommy Tremble is a little bit early to pick him. Marlin, I thought another defensive tackle, you don't really need him, so I didn't take him, and then you definitely don't need a quarterback with already having Kirk Cousins and then now drafting Zach Wilson. You didn't need another quarterback there. So at the 119th overall pick, the Vikings selected Shaun Wade, safety out of Ohio State University. And I thought, man, one thing that I thought about Shaun Wade is this. He was a great slot cornerback at Ohio State. So I thought he would be a great slot cornerback maybe in the NFL. And with so many good slot players in the NFC North, whether it is maybe Marvin Jones with the Lions, or it is Anthony Miller, or maybe even Darnell Mooney with the Bears, or sometimes Devontae Adams or Martez Valdez-Scantling for the Packers. So you have a great division with a lot of slot players that play really well, and I think that when you draft a slot corner here, you have to be able to develop them, and I think that Mike Zimmer, with him being a great defensive coach, I'm like, you got to get great defensive guys, and I think Mike Zimmer will be able to develop him. And I think Shaun Wade will be a great value pickup here. The other players that were available was Royce Newman, offensive guard out of Ole Miss, Kellen Mond, quarterback out of Texas A&M, Jalen Twyman, defensive tackle out of Pitt, and Nico Collins, wide receiver out of Michigan. So I didn't think that they needed a guard with two tackles or a tackle and a guard drafted already. I didn't think they needed a quarterback with Kirk Cousins and Zach Wilson. I don't think they need a wide receiver particularly. And I think that the only player that I was kind of tempted to take was Jalen Twyman. But I thought that Shaun Wade filled a lot bigger of a need in the slot corner position. I think that he will be able to either play slot corner or safety. He has a little bit of versatility. He cannot play outside corner at any system at all. Do not play him in outside corner and boundary. But if you play him on the inside or you play him at safety, he is fully capable of playing that strong safety position or that slot corner in Mike Zimmer's system. So with the 128th overall pick, I picked Charles Snowden, linebacker out of Virginia, and I'll be completely honest, I have not watched that much tape on him, but from what I've heard and what I've read about him, he seems like a great linebacker, a guy that would fit right into Mike Zimmer's system and be able to fit in with a guy like Eric Kendrick or be able to replace him later on in his career. So I thought that would be a great pickup there, just to pick up a linebacker for a depth piece. The other players that were available were Monty Rice, linebacker out of Georgia, Sage Surratt, wide receiver out of Wake Forest, James Hudson, offensive tackle out of Cincy, and Jamie Newman, quarterback out of Georgia. Again, don't need a quarterback. No need an offensive tackle, no need for that. A wide receiver was not in need either. And Montez Rice, I just kind of thought Charles Snowden's a little bit better for Mike Zimmer's system, so that's why I picked him up over Monty Rice. But if you think Monty Rice is better, definitely put that in the comment section down below why you think he is better. So that is that. And then here's a trade that I made. So for the 113th pick, I decided to trade that for the 136, 146, and 222nd picks. So with the 136th pick that I just received, I picked Dalen Hayes, defensive end, Dalen Hayes, defensive end out of Notre Dame. The other players that I just thought Dalen Hayes would be a great defensive end that you got there. I think that he'd be a great edge rusher. He'd be a good depth piece. And just like James Lynch that they drafted last year, he's a great leader. He showed that this past year, and I think that he'll be a great depth piece for the Vikings. Something that the Vikings really need is a lot of edge rush with a strengthening division, especially on the offensive lines. Other players that were available was Bobby Brown, defensive tackle out of Texas A&M, Jamie Sherwood, safety out of Auburn, and Victor a defensive end out of Duke. So with the 144th pick, I picked Kenneth Taylor, cornerback out of Washington University. And the reason why I picked Kenneth Taylor here was just because I thought you could always use some depth at cornerback, and he was the best player available, and he was the best value. So I thought, why not take the best value pick here? And he is definitely the best player at this position. I have only one pick before my next one, which was Cornell Powell, wide receiver out of Clemson. And I'm like, I don't really need another wide receiver. And Cornell Powell doesn't have any special talents, particularly. So I thought, why not take a cornerback that you could always use depth at that defensive back position. So with the 146 overall pick, I picked David Moore, guard out of Grambling State. I love this guy as a prospect. He is going to be a great prospect. He is just a road grader. I think he is just a lot like the guy out of Louisiana Tech that I can't think of his name. He went to the Dolphins. But just kind of a road grader. A great player is just going to play all game long for the team and not is going to put all the effort into it. And I thought that he'd be a great pickup and another swing kind of guard there just to add depth to an offensive line that really, really needs some depth. With the 158th, the other players that were available at that pick were Kalen Hill, running back out of Mississippi State, and Shaka Toney, defensive end out of Pitt. I've already picked up a defensive end, so I didn't think we needed that, and I didn't think that a running back was totally necessary with having one of the better running backs in the NFL and Dalvin Cook on your team. So with 158th overall pick, I picked Cade Johnson, wide receiver out of South Dakota State. Guys, you need to look him up. He is going to be a great player in the NFL. And even though he is going to be going in the later rounds and he's an FCS player, you have to go watch him. You have to look at his tape. You have to go watch them. This is going to be a fantastic wide receiver and a fantastic draft pick in the 5th round. So with that, I really thought he was the best player available. And the only other players that were available was William Bradley King, defensive end out of Baylor, and Darius Stills, defensive tackle out of West Virginia. And I just didn't think that either of those guys were as talented or as much boom as Cade Johnson. With the 178th overall pick, I picked Jarius Robinson, defensive end out of Florida State University. I just thought, why don't you get another defensive end piece? And he was the best player available at that point. So I thought that he'd be a great pickup there. So I just thought that he'd be a good pickup there. The players that were available were Robert Hainsey, offensive tackle out of Notre Dame, Joshua Bloodsell, safety out of Missouri. So I thought this was going to be a great pickup here. You get another defensive end piece and just another guy you can rotate in. I think a great player here and a guy that would be a good value. And with the 208th overall pick, I picked Josh Palmer, wide receiver out of Tennessee. Again, this guy had a bad quarterback in Jared Guantanamo, and he is not a very good quarterback. But Josh Palmer made a bad situation into a great situation. He has had such a good career at Tennessee. His highlights aren't as explosive as a guy like Jalen Waddle or Elijah Moore or stuff like that, or Rondale Moore. But he is such an explosive player, and if you actually got him a good quarterback, I think he could be a really good wide receiver and a great depth piece to an already fantastic wide receiver core. And with the final pick that I have, I picked Sean Jolly, cornerback out of App State. So this is one of the last picks in the draft, so there was only like one player available that I kind of considered, which was Chris Rump, the second defensive end out of Duke. And even though I really like Chris Rump, I thought that why not pick another cornerback depth piece when you've already picked up 2 defensive end depth pieces, so I thought that'd be a great pickup there. So if you want to rate my draft, give it an A, B, C, D, or F. Make sure you give that a thumbs up, and make sure you comment all your thoughts and opinions. As always, make sure you hit the 2 videos down below and hit the subscribe button up here. Go watch all my other mock drafts for all sorts of mock draft coverage. As always, have a great day. Bye.